All right, let's dive into the factory system. We're going to talk about how a new way of making things didn't just change how people worked, it completely, totally reshaped our entire world. Okay, to get a sense of just how big a deal this was, look at this. Before factories, you've got one skilled shoemaker, maybe they make one pair of shoes in an entire week. But then the factory system comes along, and suddenly in that same week, you're looking at 1,000 pairs. I mean, how is that even possible? Well, that's exactly the story we're going to unpack. So to really get this, we have to kind of rewind and picture the world before all this. We're talking about a world made almost entirely by hand. Most things were crafted by individual artisans, weavers, blacksmiths, working right out of their own homes, or maybe a small village shop, using pretty simple hand tools. Everything, life and work, just moved at a much slower human pace. But then, someone had a really revolutionary idea. Business owners started to realize, hey, what if we brought all the workers and all the machines together under one single roof? They figured they could produce way, way more. And just like that, the factory was born. And believe me, that one idea, it changed everything. Seriously, this wasn't just about a new place to work. It created a completely new way for people to live their lives. Now, the technology behind this was absolutely key. At first, you had these early factories that had to be built right next to a river so they could use water wheels for power. But the real game changer? That was the steam engine. Because it was fueled by coal, you suddenly had this reliable, powerful source of energy that meant you could build a factory pretty much anywhere. And since factories didn't need rivers anymore, they started popping up all over the place. This led straight to something called urbanization. It's basically the super fast growth of cities, because millions of people started leaving their farms and small villages to move to where the new factory jobs were. And these new cities, wow, they grew incredibly fast. The housing was often just thrown up, super crowded, with really poor drainage and not a lot of clean water. You had factory chimneys just pumping black smoke into the sky all day. But at the same time, you also had new railroads connecting all these busy cities, which was crucial for moving raw materials in and shipping all those finished goods out. But all of this fast progress, well, it came at a huge human cost. We really need to talk about the harsh reality of what it was actually like for the people working inside these new factories. So, a typical workday in a factory? We're talking 12 to 14 hours long, and that was 6 days a week. Think about that. Your life wasn't ruled by the sun and the seasons anymore. It was ruled by the factory clock. You'd get just a couple of short breaks for meals, and that was it. And it wasn't just adults working these insane hours. Children, some as young as 8 years old, were hired to work in these factories. Why? Well, they could be paid a lot less than adults. And their small size meant they were the ones sent to crawl under the dangerous running machinery to fix things like broken threads. The conditions inside were just incredibly dangerous. I mean, in the textile mills, the air was so thick with dust and fibers it was hard to even breathe. The huge machines had zero safety guards, so accidents were horrifyingly common. And all of this was happening with the constant, deafening roar of machinery in the background, all while strict supervisors watched to make sure nobody was resting. The rise of the factory was also really tough on the traditional skilled workers. Imagine you're an artisan who spent years and years perfecting your craft, like making shoes or weaving cloth by hand. Suddenly, you just can't compete with the super low prices and incredible speed of the goods being churned out by machines. A lot of these craftsmen ended up losing their businesses. So, the big question is, how did they do it? How did these factories get so incredibly fast and efficient? Let's pull back the curtain and look at the secrets that made it all possible. Okay, the core idea here is called mass production. The genius of it was this. Instead of having one person make a whole product from start to finish, you break the job down into lots of small, simple, repetitive steps. Then each worker does just one of those steps over and over and over. And you know what? They get incredibly fast at that one single task. The second huge innovation was something called interchangeable parts. This is a simple but brilliant idea. Every single component of a product is made to be exactly identical. So if a piece broke, you didn't have to find a skilled craftsman to make a special custom replacement. Nope, you could just grab a standard one and swap it right in.
Honestly, the best way to think about this is with Lego bricks. You know how any 2x4 brick fits perfectly with any other 2x4 brick? That's the exact same idea. And that principle, interchangeable parts, made building things and fixing them way faster and cheaper than ever before. And when you put those two big ideas together, mass production and interchangeable parts, you get the assembly line. So picture this. The product itself is actually moving, usually on a conveyor belt. It goes from one station to the next, and at each stop, a different worker performs their one specific task on it. This system kept the pace of work totally steady and super efficient. It got rid of almost all wasted time in movement. Okay, so we've seen how huge these changes were back then. But what about now? What's the lasting legacy of all this? How does it still affect you and me in our modern world today? Well, the impact on everyday life was absolutely massive. Because of mass production, all kinds of goods got way, way cheaper. Suddenly, regular people could afford things that used to be total luxuries, like having a clock in your house, or nice furniture, or even more than one set of clothes. For a lot of people, this meant their overall standard of living really went up. And you can really see just how far we've come when you look at factories then versus now. Those early factories were dark, they were dangerous. But today? Modern factories are often really clean, way safer, and a lot of the most dangerous jobs are now done by robots and computers. So even with those really harsh beginnings, the factory system's ability to make things in huge quantities, well, it laid the groundwork for the entire modern economy. It's been a really powerful tool in helping to reduce poverty all across the world. I mean, just take a second and look around you right now. The pencil you write with, the computer or phone you're using, even the chair you're sitting in. Almost every single thing we use today is made using the exact same principles that came from the factory system. So yeah, the factory system, powered by steam and a whole lot of human labor, literally built the world that we all live in today. It was a complete revolution in how we make things and in how we live. And that leaves us with one last really big question to think about. What's going to build the world of the future?